This time on Rad Rat Video, we talk about why I think I probably should have been goofy. Let's do it. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel about skateboarding where we do videos of all kinds of different skateboarding topics, and I answer your questions that you can submit through radratvideo.com. Let's read the first one from Desir, who says, mine's a pretty simple one, not even directly tied to skateboarding, but I was wondering, do you ever go back and look at your older content and critique it or consider remaking it? If so, how often do you do, and what prevents you from doing so? I watch my older stuff as infrequently as possible. Every now and then, it's kind of funny, I'll look up something online because I'll just need the quick fact, and I'll look up who invented the crooked grind or something like that, and my video will come up as the first result. So every now and then I'll end up watching my own stuff just to get like the scans of Thrasher that I used or like that type of stuff, but I don't really watch my old stuff because it's terrible. So when I first started, I was trying to be really professional, like really practiced in like delivering the content in a very clean type of way, and that was the wrong choice. Being loose and being able to just talk and be more conversational is a much better way to go. But what I used to have, so I had an app on my phone where I would write out the script. So they ask Rad Rat questions. I don't think I scripted those, but I definitely planned out my answers. I still do, but only in my head. I don't like write out a lot of stuff. But for a video, like a game review or something along those lines, I would have the script for the video on my phone, and I would have my phone mounted right beneath the camera lens. And it would scroll the text of the script, and I would just sit here like this, and I would read it. And it would be very evenly paced. So the speed would not change because I had to keep up with what was on the screen. So I couldn't speed up for the simple stuff. I couldn't slow down and really explain some of the more complicated stuff. I had to deliver it the way that I wrote it. So it's kind of like watching me read a blog post as opposed to a video. And yeah, there were some other issues with those videos. I always had like a button-up shirt on. I was trying to, again, look presentable, professional, like a business casual type look. I always had a terrible haircut because my ex-wife used to cut my hair, try to save some money, and she would always couldn't blend it, couldn't figure it out in all of the years that we did it. She would just shave like all the way up to here, then stop, and then they would just kind of hang over. So there's like a weird bump right here, and there's like a line where you can see where it was supposed to fade and it didn't. So I got a terrible haircut, I'm dressed weird, and I talk really slowly and awkwardly. So yeah, those videos are not great. I don't watch those for fun. The reason why I don't remake them is because there's always new stuff. I've been really tempted before, if I made a big mistake in a video or something like that, to redo it. There was one that I started to redo. I was almost going to redo Tony Hawk HD. So I reviewed that video, or that game, and in the video I made a mistake. I said that they reused the engine from the PS2 games. What I meant to say was they reused the levels. Like they ported the PS2 versions of the levels. It doesn't matter. Point is, I made a mistake in it, and a lot of the comments were about that. So I wanted to redo it, but a lot of other stuff came out. This was not too long ago. So we had like Skater XL, and we had like session demos coming out, and like and then Tony Hawk Remake came out. So why am I going to go back and play HD at this point? There's just less of a reason to do it. With this series, I do re-answer questions as long as it's been a long time since I've talked about them. So in that case, I kind of do remake stuff, but as far as the main videos, not really. And so, yeah, there is stuff that I'm saving still where I want more practice even, and I want to be more confident in making this big video knowing that I'll do a good job. So anyway, that's kind of the thought process there. Okay, next question from Marvin. Are big spins into slides even a real thing? Played a lot of Skater XL recently. I love doing big spins into grinds and slides. And after a while, I noticed that when I do a big spin into a front side nose slide, the game just tells me to 360 shove it into a front nose slide, which makes sense since you only spin 90 degrees while doing the 360 shove it. Still kind of big spin, I guess. So he says, same thing with a back tail, like backside big spin into a back tail. Okay. I think it's always a big spin. If the board does a 270, you do a 90. The board has done a extra spin compared to you, so it's a big spin. That's kind of all there is to it for me. I remember seeing a debate in the barracks comments on their Instagram. Someone did like a big spin front board, and the argument was it's not a big spin unless you land it to fakie. But to me, it doesn't matter. The spin's done. What happens after the board slide? You did a big spin into a board slide. How you land that board slide's a separate thing. And I think even the barracks official account was like, oh, you got a point there, but I don't think you do. It's always a big spin. The only way it's a 360 shove it is if you spin the opposite way. So if you roll up backside, do a backside 270 shove it, you spin front side and land in a backside no slide, that's a 360 shove it no slide. You can't do a 360 shove it frontside no slide. You can do a 360 big spin frontside no slide, or I mean a 540 big spin. The board does a 450. You could do that, but you wouldn't call it 360 shove it no slide. So no slides, tail slides, board slides, lip slides. It's always a big spin if you spin the same direction as it, in my opinion. And it's simpler, because if I say I did a big spin back tail, you know exactly what that means. I don't have to say what direction the big spin was in because it's obvious, right? I could do a front big spin into a front tail slide. I could just say big spin front tail, you get it. Or front big spin tail slide, you get that too. If I say 360 shove it, I have to explain if it was a 360 shove it into a front tail or which direction. Like it's just more complicated. Okay. Next question is from Mr. Yerke. This is a good one. Is it bad that I discriminate against goofy-footed skaters? What I mean is that when I watch a skate video, I prefer to only watch regular-footed skaters since I am regular-footed myself. Is that bad? Yeah. It's really funny, too, because, like, regular and goofy is really close to 50-50. It's about half and half, okay? So if you don't like goofy skaters, you're going to miss out on half of the best skateboarders in the world. Maybe your potential favorite skater is goofy, but you wouldn't know that because you refuse to watch their video parts. I just think this is really funny because, like, it's not that hard to get used to it, because you see it so often. Half of the footage you see is someone who's the opposite stance as you. So you just kind of get used to it. You can tell from where their shoulders are and stuff, whether they're rolling up goofy or whether it's switch or normal, depending, you can figure out what stance they are after a couple of tricks normally. So, like, it's not that big of a deal. But saying it that you discriminate against them is pretty ridiculous. The one time that I kind of understand where you're coming from is with a fingerboard, okay? So with everybody, they're all one stance. It's always like this. You pop this finger, you flip with this finger. So if you're going left, it's normal. If you're going right, it's switch. 100% of the time for everybody, unless you're left-handed. And then it's confusing because it's the opposite. And, like, that gets kind of confusing. But it's rare. So if you're watching fingerboard videos on Instagram and you watch like 100 clips and then this one left-hander shows up, you're like, like it's confusing for a second, but it's rare. With goofy skateboarding, it's super common. So I don't know. I just thought that was kind of an amusing question. Thought I'd throw that one out there for you guys. Okay. Final question is from James. In your Skate 2 review, you said, I recently started thinking I probably should have been goofy in real life. Then you say it's a story for another time. Well, it's been years since that video came out, so I just want to know that story you've been saving for some time. Okay, so here is the background of that. I used to have a lot of problems with my right knee, which is my back foot normally. And I realized, like, it would start to hurt after about 5 minutes of skateboarding. And I realized that it would last longer if I was skating switch, because it seemed like, like the heavy pop and scoop sort of motions were hurting it more, and any kind of light ankle flicks and things like that are fine for my knee. So skating switch, I could skate a lot longer. So I was thinking, like, I should just try to skate switch more. And I was realizing that a lot of the tricks I was doing were a lot easier, like significantly easier. And I was starting to think that I probably should have been goofy. And I think there's 3 potential answers to what this thing was, but I'll explain more. So I have a trick tip where I did a 360 flip, and I talk it through, and you see all the footage of me landing them. That took me a long time to record because I was trying to do the type of foot position that I recommend trying it in when you first start, but that's not how my 360 flips look at all. Normally my front foot is really close to the nose. It's like on the front bolts almost. That's the only way I can do it because my foot will catch the board and it'll flip like 2 or 3 times and fly out ahead of me if I just casually try a 360 flip. I have to like have my foot so close to the flick spot, like at the start of the nose, that it happens immediately. And that's the only way I don't over flip it. So if I try to do a 360 flip, that's normally how I do it. But in Switch, I don't have to think about it. It's a hard trick. I don't land it all the time. And the biggest problem with my Switch is just committing to landing stuff. Like I'm really bad at Switch. I cannot over exaggerate how bad I am at Switch. Like it's scary to just roll Switch and my balance is like this and I feel like I'm going to fall over. But if I try a trick, it just works. So I'll try a Switch 360 flip, put my feet in, roughly this type of position vaguely, just try to scoop it and flip it and it stays with me. My normal 360 flips, if I don't really focus on popping, if I don't focus on popping the tail this way, it'll fly out that way. I gotta force it this way. I gotta flick it super quick so that it doesn't catch, and then it'll work. Switch, I just kind of try the trick and it happens. It's really weird. The other thing is with hard flips. So hard flips, I can do it if you count back toe touch and into a kick turn. I can do it like that all day, every day. Getting the extra last like 20 degrees and landing it straight is really, really hard. I've done a few, but like my whole life, I have footage of me from like 2007 doing a hard flip, landing it the exact same way I do now, no matter how hard I try. It's just really, really hard. It just doesn't work that well. But Switch, This is what happened that actually made me talk about that in the Skate 2 review. I tried to switch hard flip just kind of randomly one time. My back foot was just on the tail. Normally, if I try them in my normal stance, I have to like put it on the heel side and in like a really extreme position because I'm scooping like I'm doing a front 540 shove it. Like I scoop it so hard and I flip it extremely hard. I do like a 540 triple hard flip. That's how hard I try in my normal stance. In Switch, my back foot was just kind of on the tail, vaguely here. Maybe there's tail, like it's in the middle of the tail, not even on the tip where I normally do it. It's just kind of on the tail. It's fine. Front foot, kick flip-ish type of spot, a little bit before the bolts, just, if it feels comfortable, it's fine. And I just do a frontside shove it in a kick flip and it just kind of comes together. And I would catch it. And like, again, really bad at Switch. So I get in the air, I'm catching a trick switch and I like kind of panic. I'm not saying I'm landing all these, but just do a front shove it in a kick flip and it works. But if I try one in my normal stance, the amount of math that's going on, like the memes of like all the calculations coming up, that's exactly what it's like to try to do a normal stance hard flip for me. Lots of tricks are like that. Lots of calculations, lots of I got to shift my balance right at the last second and then I can do this and I'm scooping this out and stuff like that. But in Switch it just kind of works. So my thought at the time, I ended up getting my knee fixed so I didn't have to worry about skating Switch all the time. So my thought was, I should just be skating Switch a lot, get more comfortable at just pushing around and getting my feet in position and like dragging the tail to a stop. Like all that stuff in Switch is kind of hard for me. But just get used to the regular skating stuff in Switch and then tricks will just be easier because the tricks are easier. I just got to get used to the actual skating part. And so I started thinking that may be the case. But I actually have 3 possible solutions or reasons why. First was that I should have just been goofy and that I am goofy and I've been skating wrong my whole life. I don't really think this is the case. I did a video not too long ago about how I'm not sure if stance is even a thing. And I actually had an experience related to that right after I put out that video. So my friend's kid skates and he's 5 years old. Okay. All he really does is he puts his board on stuff. Like he'll put his board just on the ground, like with the tail on the ground, and he'll jump on it and like drop in on flat. He'll do stuff like that. And he switches stances all the time. And I was trying to ask him, which way do you like to skate? Do you like to skate this way or do you like to skate that way? And he's like, oh, I like to skate that way. But what he meant was he likes to skate from the porch to the patio. He didn't care which direction he's standing on the board. It made no difference to him. It was just like he walks up to his board and whichever foot he happens to be on at the time is the one he'll put on, and that determines his stance. It has nothing to do with comfort, you know? So he starts to try to drop in off the bottom step of the porch, just like drop onto the ground, like do this. And, you know, he's 5, so we're having trouble asking him how he feels about stance and stuff because he doesn't understand. He doesn't care. He just drops in, does a couple times this way. The next time he gets up the other way and he's dropping in, switch or whatever. Like he just, it doesn't matter. And I really feel like that's how it is. Like stance is a lot in your head. And so I don't feel like I really should have been goofy. I don't think that's the real thing. Maybe. I'm undecided. The other 2 possibilities are that I learned everything regular wrong, which is likely because I taught myself all of my tricks. You know, like even if you watch a trick tip, you ultimately come up with the very fine details of how you do it to yourself. I watched Yoshi? What's his name? I watched a laser flip trick tip recently. And what he says is do a varial heel flip, but do it harder. And he just repeats that like 10 different times. And that's it. Like there's no detail. So if I watch that, it's a relatively long video. There's lots of different clips of a laser flip in it. If I went outside and landed a laser flip, I didn't do it by thinking about doing a varial heel but harder. I actually came up with the specifics of how you do it, right? So ultimately you do teach yourself all of your tricks. And in my regular stance, I probably taught myself tricks really badly. So in switch, I can learn it from the perspective of already knowing how to do it, right? So I don't have to do like really crappy kick flips for a long time. I know how to do a kick flip and flick and not kick down, you know, like actually flick and have the board level out and catch it with my back foot. Like I know all of that stuff. So now if I want to learn it switch, it's easier. So maybe that's why a switch is a little easier. But I think the most likely solution is option number 3, which is that it's a weight distribution issue. So I've noticed that when I skate, I have my weight on my right foot, which is probably why the knee problems were worse. It doesn't matter if that's my front or back foot. It's always over my right foot. So when I'm skating normal, it's usually not a problem because I learned all my tricks that way. But it's actually kind of interesting. So I can do frontside flips with my weight back. It doesn't matter because I start to pop and I throw the tail out ahead. Like I scoop the tail way up. Got a trick tip on frontside flips if you want extreme detail on exactly how I do it. But I pop and I throw the tail out ahead. I kind of flick backwards and then I catch it like that. And I'm decently good at them and it works and it's fine. But backside flips don't really work in my balance. So it feels really weird to me. I feel like I got to jump over this way and I can do them, but they're not that good. And I was trying to do, I was playing an online game of skate with my friend Tony. He said a frontside heel flip, and I had the hardest time. I would set up like this, you know, weight back, pop the board and flip it, and it just flies over there. It was unlandable. I could not do it no matter what. Eventually, I was trying to learn with my weight, not even over my front foot, but in front of my front foot. Now, you can watch the footage. It's not good, but it's just, you know, a game of skate level land is good enough. And it doesn't look like I have my weight that far forward, but it felt like it because that's the technique I figured out. I had to have my weight really far forward, and that way when I spin and the board spin, we spin in the same place. And so I think in switch, my weight is just on my front foot because it's my right foot. So if I want to do tricks, I'm more centered on the board and it just kind of sticks with me more. You do a 360 flip with your weight really far back, of course the board's going to want to fly away. If you have your weight over your front foot and you do a 360 flip, you're scooping toward you and the nose goes backwards so the board ends up staying more centered and it works. I think that's more likely what the problem was. So I have, well, I was talking about how when I do a backside flip, it typically wants to fly away and I have to like trick myself into doing it. I keep my back super straight. That's the technique for it. Keep your back straight and you don't like curl into the pop and the board won't fly away. But switch, I don't have to do anything. So one time I did my first switch backside flip. I did a grind to fakie, like a nose slide to fakie or something like that, and I landed switch. And I'm rolling like, you know what would be cool in this line right here is a switch backside flip, and I just did it. And it worked, and it was no problem. Why? I think it's because my weight was forward. And so when I flicked down, it kind of pulled the tail around and it stayed with me and it just worked. So I think the issue is more of a weight distribution thing and not necessarily that it's the wrong stance. So if I can maybe convert that knowledge to normal, I don't think I can anymore because like impossibles and pressure flips and a lot of the stuff that I do really requires your weight to be further back anyway. So the tricks that I got good at are because they're doable with a weight back type of stance. If I learn how to do stuff with my weight forward, maybe that'll solve the problem, but I don't think it'll ever feel natural. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. It could be any or all of these things as to why switch tricks are easier to do but harder to land for me. But that's it. If you have questions, go to radratvideo.com and you can submit them there. You can also buy a very sexy t-shirt. You can go to patreon.com and sponsor me there and you can submit questions and I will definitely answer them. And aside from that, subscribe so you don't miss the next video and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.